weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Best Comics of the Week show. I am once again joined by my man Gray from Wakasashi's Tea House. What up, Gray?
What up, Jim? How are you doing today?
I am Genki. I am Genki, full out. We may actually get this up on a Saturday night, which would be crazy. I think it might be the first time, and that's where I wanted it to come out, but I never got it done, but you were here to kick me in the butt and get it going because it is actually Sunday morning. For you over in Japan, so that's kind of cool. You're time traveling. It's a Sunday morning. It's not late. I'd love to say that it's late, and that's why I'm tired. It's not that late, but I'm still tired. And as we were getting ready, and I said, I'm going to go down, I'm going to heat up my coffee, I'm going to come up and we'll start. And I ended up heating my coffee. I don't know what happened. I might have put it in some nuclear reactor. This coffee ended up so hot when I grabbed it, and I had it. This is the thing, too. I put it in an old Wawa coffee cup, and I think I've used it a little too much. So it's a little bit frayed and coming apart. I grabbed the coffee, and it all spilled in my hand. And I have like bubbling up welts and stuff now. It hurts.
Oh, my God.
So,
do you need to go to the hospital, Jim?
No, I think I'll be fine.
Okay.
But I just wanted to let everybody know, so in case I get angry. But actually, there's no reason to get angry. This isn't like a regular show. This is actually the fun thing. Almost like at the end of the week, you get, that thing where you can relax and enjoy the books that we liked, because there were some that we liked. Not a ton from the big two, but actually a bunch of indie stuff, which is why I like having you on. You're more of an indie guy than I am. But before we go into this, let me remind everybody that, first off, just because we picked these books and may have not picked some that you like, that doesn't mean we didn't like them. These are just our favorites of the week. And what you should do then is tell us what your favorites of the week are in the comments, mainly because I do end up, we record a lot. Me and you do as well. And so I lose track of some books. I end up not having time. And when people end up suggesting things, I will check them out. That's why I like to hear other people's lists. And that's why
Same here.
I love to hear from Gray on the show, because he has a couple books that he picked that I haven't even read. So I'm excited to hear what he thought about those. But we'll start with DC Comics. I have one on the list, but you added another. So it actually has double the books we have for Marvel this week. And that's pretty pathetic. But I'm going to start out with Green Lantern number 8. It's written by Jeremy Adams and art by Amon K. Noapan. And it also has a backup by Ron Mars and Dale Eaglesham. And I haven't been on board with I like Jeremy Adams. I love Jeremy Adams as a writer, but I think the Green Lantern book, it's been held back, especially because of that idea that Hal, he can't end up leaving Earth. Everybody wants to know what's going on with the United Planets. This issue, actually, to me, is almost seeing, okay, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, where you end up having Hal with Razor confront these other Lanterns, and they start switching between emotional spectrums and things. And now it doesn't feel to me like the emotional spectrum is wonky. It feels like this is something specifically being done by the United Planets. We know they're sus, right? I mean, they have to be. And so it just feels to me like we're starting to get to the point Hal's going to have to leave Earth, and that's what I have wanted. And then you end up having a backup that has Kyle Rayner, which we haven't seen in a while. We haven't seen Kyle in a while, but even him and then Joe Mullins are kind of on the case, and they are like, let's go see what's going on with the United Planets. So I think that this is the start of that push towards finding out what the big giant story is, and hopefully tying in to the Green Lantern War Journal by Philip Kennedy Johnson as well. Did you read this at all?
I'm kind of in and out on Green Lantern, Jim. It's a character that I've never really got into, but I'm waiting for the right story to really pull me in, and it hasn't done so far. But like you, I like Jeremy Adams. I like him from The Flash, of course.
People had said, oh my God, this is a good jumping on point. But the problem is nothing has really happened, though. And a lot of the things that you kind of like, the mysteries going on, kind of go back and forth. And on our regular podcast this week, we talked about it, obviously. And my man Eric is a huge Green Lantern fan. I'm like you. It's not my favorite thing. I do enjoy it, but I'm here more for Jeremy Adams. And when we do the podcast, I start getting positive about it. But Eric, who is a big Green Lantern fan, he's nitpicking about all these things. Well, the Blue Lantern, the battery it already blew up. It already did. And I think he's being held back, but I kind of feel like, yeah. And I'll admit, when we do this, and I'm sure people will comment that they'll say, what are you crazy? They've loved it. I see a lot of people loving it. It just hasn't done much. So I end up wanting more. And it feels like we're going to get to that. And the art is really good, especially in the main deals. Zamonico usually does it, but Amin K. Noapan does a really good job. So I would suggest keeping an eye on it if you haven't been reading it, or maybe you fell off it, because it does look like we're going to get to the point for Hal getting off of Earth and going to see what is going on with the United Planets, which is the big story. But that's my pick for DC. You have another one, and it's a book I haven't read. I didn't even read the first issue, and usually I check out all the number ones. I'm telling you, this book, it got tangled up in the Gargoyle of Gotham book by Raphael Grandpa, and it kind of ended up having me put them both aside. But I feel bad because I didn't even get this a chance. But what is it that you're picking?
It is Batman, City of Madness. It's issue 3, and it's the final part. Only a three-part miniseries, Jim. Oversized DC Black Label, and can you believe this? It's $6.99, so it is expensive. I enjoyed it, yeah. To be fair, I'm a bit of a Lovecraft fan. I've always liked the Cthulhu themed stories, and it's Batman Cthulhu version. It talks about a Gotham below. Can you believe it? There's a Gotham below, the Gotham above. It's like, what's going on?
You know what's funny? Now that you say that, I did read the first issue. And the thing that I had with the first issue, if you remember, you kind of got the Cthulhu at the very end.
Yeah.
And then and I'll admit too, and I don't know how everybody is with this. First off, the Raphael Grandpa, the whole Gargoyle of Gotham, that scheduling has been so off. I think that the next issue is like 5 months away.
Oh my God.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
or at least it's between.
Completely.
Yeah. And I actually, even with because usually the Black Label stuff, it comes out every other month. I lose track.
That's right.
I always lose track of it. It's a pain. And usually on our regular podcast, we only do the main continuity books. We don't do the Black Label stuff as kind of a general rule. So that kind of makes me lose track of it again. But once you said the Cthulhu, I remember seeing that squid guy at the end of the first issue, but I never got back to it. But you like it. I did like the art. I mean, Christian Ward's an artist, so
the art
that's
is really
a big
good.
deal. Yeah, and so I guess, and I see people really enjoying it. Maybe I'll have to catch up with it.
It's
now
like, Jim,
over.
if you like an Elseworld story, just like take it like that. It's you just come to it as a one-off and had a lot of fun with it. As you say, the art is excellent. I've heard some criticism of the colouring. It's a little bit, lots of pinks and purples, that kind of thing. But it looks awesome on some of the double-page spreads. Really, really good.
What you're telling me is you were talking to Sully. Sully sends me notes all the time. And he's like, I really like the art, but there's too many pinks and purples. I'm like, oh, here we go. But yeah, so check that out. I'll check it out as well. But that's it for DC. I have an honorable mention. I guess we'll throw that in right now. My honorable mention is Action Comics 1062. It's Jason Aaron continuing his Bizarro story. Problem with this issue, it's so full on Bizarro talk. And then it isn't, and then it is, and it feels off. It's hard to tell a story just through Bizarro talk, so he kind of jumps in and out. I like the overall concept of Bizarro using magic to try to make a Bizarro world on Earth. And now at the end of this issue, it is spreading out of Metropolis and even going into Gotham. So you have Superman needing to hook up with the sanest man alive, which ends up being the Joker, which is the cliffhanger. That's really cool. But the rest of the stuff, and even had a really cheap play, like in the middle of the issue, all of a sudden you have Superman just killing people. But then, oh my God, it was
really?
I mean, he heat visions people and then just destroys a news chopper. And then all of a sudden, that was of the mind. But there was no setup to it. It was so cheap, because then you're like, I actually, while it was going on, how's he going to get out of this? I mean, this is pretty bad. And no, it didn't really happen. So it threw me off. I was like, And again, I didn't hate the issue. I didn't love it like I did the first issue, though. So that's why it's an honorable mention. I'm still looking forward to what's going on in action by Jason Aaron. I really do like Jason Aaron on the Batman Offworld. That's the book that I love.
That's been really good, yeah.
Yeah, and I did really like that first issue of Action with Jason Aaron, but this one, again, it's tough. That Bizarro talk is really tough, but you also get Constantine, Blue Devil. You have a lot of cool things. I didn't even mention the idea in Green Lantern #8. We ended up, as I said on the podcast, we went to Sector Double D because Xanadu was in there and she was stacked, but that's not here nor there.
Right, that's it. I'm reading it right after this recording.
I'm telling you, it's worth it. It is. But those are our picks for DC. So we'll move on to Marvel. You don't even have a Marvel pick. I have one, and it's an old friend of ours. Me and you had been reviewing Blade.
Yes.
This is Blade #8. I'm throwing it in. I think that this might be like a surprise pick. I think people fell off the book. When me and you were reviewing it, we got to that point where we just thought, nothing's really going on. We thought it was canceled at one point. We didn't have so this whole Adonis story has just been kind of hanging on. You end up having, and I think the last one we did was Blade going to train with Dracula. That doesn't seem to have that much effect on anything. It's weird. It's not weird because we thought that was kind of the, hey, this is the wow moment to get people on, but not really referencing it. In this one, though, you end up having Elena Casagrande back, which we have been waiting for that. But it's a different colorist. You have to check it out afterwards and tell me what you think, because it's a different colorist and it doesn't feel like Elena Casagrande quite like her art because of the different coloring. But it is Blade going to Satana to get a trip to hell, being helped by that young girl, Rotha, that we had in there. And he ends up, because it's one of those things, to go to hell, you have to kind of put something up for, almost like, here's my collateral, this girl's soul, because I care for her. He goes down to hell to get an army to fight the Adana. And when he gets down there, the only one he really gets is Draven. And if you don't recognize the name, that's that guy at the beginning of the series that he killed by accident and actually brought the Adana into, reality. Because
Draven's back, yeah?
Yeah, Draven's back. He gets him, but he's Ghost Draven. But he's also Ghost Daddy because he's actually Rotha's dad. So Rotha, all that time where she was talking about, oh, you killed that monk, you did, actually was her father. So, and then you play a little game in this of playing like, oh, Rotha is now looking at Blade as like a father figure, but Ghost Daddy comes back. And you expect this army to come back, but it is just now Blade. I don't know if Satana will end up doing anything with them, but they have Ghost Draven and Rotha. They're in big trouble. The best thing, though, is, and you'll get a kick out of it, when they go down, Blade finds this Draven. He's like, hey, I need you. We're going to fight the Adana. And he's like, well, you killed me. That was kind of bullcrap, but all we need is that sword. That sword. He's like, yeah, I kind of gave it to her. And he's like, oh my God. So it is kind of funny.
You fool. What did you do?
And so at the end, though, it really felt like all those other issues, even with the Dracula issue, that felt like they were treading water. They didn't really have any sort of, focus. This feels like, again, that it's focused and we're going to head towards, taking on the Adana. I don't know if it'll go past that. The book may end then. But it was pretty cool. And again, I wanted to give Brian Hill a little shout out because I did like Black Panther so much. So I ended up even like, I hope that this Blade hits a little. And it did. So I suggest everybody go there. I don't even have a honorable mention of anything Marvel. There were a bunch of big books, but nothing that I really, really enjoyed. So we'll move on to the indie scene. And this is where you shine, Gray. This is your shining moments. But we'll start with the big book. I think that any sort of show that you see like this, Transformers is on it every week that it comes out, right?
It has to be, yeah. It's an absolute killer series. It seems to be getting better each issue, and I do hear that a lot from people. Do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People love it. And it's one of those books, too, that it's always cool to get different people involved, like somebody you knew that, hey, they're not in the comics, or they were into it but kind of left off. A lot of people use this book to get people to springboard back. And, I mean, we need books like that because of the state of things, but it is Transformers #5 by Image/Skybound, written and art by Daniel Warren Johnson. I don't know what's going to happen when he stops, drawing it, because it's such a big play of the series.
That's right.
But it's good.
They are, Jim. There's some people out there that don't like his style, but I love it. I love Daniel Warren Johnson's style, and I think it really suits this Transformers universe. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's gritty. At points, I can see sometimes, because I'm a dummy, I get a little confused. But then you look at it and it makes sense. But in this issue, like one of the things, you have a progression in this where you have Carly, the girl, and she's falling off a dam. And you have RC, who just got resurrected as a car form, riding up. And the way that they do, the way that Daniel Warren Johnson does the choreography of it, where the car is driving up the side of a dam and then skids, kind of drifts and opens the door as Carly falls into the car, is pretty good.
Come on, that is just awesome, isn't it?
It was so awesome. It was so good. And again, the whole story is the Autobots and the Decepticons are both looking to get energon. And you have the Autobots that were taking kind of the long path by befriending humans, where you have Starscream and they were just grabbing and stealing and really just cannibalizing stuff the whole way. And it does look like at this point, the Autobots, they're upping their numbers now. They're able to bring people back. But it's pretty cool at the end. You see that Starscream pulls out the Constructicons. Pretty good cliffhanger.
Favorite line from the book was Starscream saying, "Was it time for a violence party?" It's like, come on.
It was so good.
And it's so good. I'm not a G.I. Joe fan. I've not really been into it, or even Transformers. But if you've got these comic series and Cobra Commander, they've all got me hooked. I mean, how good is that? That's why it's been so successful.
Definitely. And next week, Cobra Commander comes out. So that's pretty cool. Like, I'm excited about it. We'll go to your next pick, actually, because this is a book that I ended up starting out on and I kind of lost track of it. But what is it?
I'm the same as you. I think it was you that recommended the first issue. It is The Hunger and the Dusk by G. Willow Wilson, art by Chris Wildgoose. And I got to say, Jim, what a great name. Chris Wildgoose. I love that.
It sounds like some sort of liquor. Right? It'd be like a whiskey.
Some moonshine.
Like some whiskey or something. And yeah, it's funny because I ended up getting you into the series and then fell off it. And now you're going to tell, the deal with it. But I'm not a huge G. Willow Wilson fan. But I
Same
do
here.
like it. It's one of those things with G. Willow Wilson. I wouldn't go and buy anything just because she's writing it. But I have liked some things that she's written. I did like The Hunger and the Dust, the first 2 or 3 issues. I can't remember how far I got into it, but
this was issue 6. It actually wraps up the first story arc, and they're taking a break, Jim, until the summer. It says issue 7's out in summer, but it's basically here's a quick synopsis: in a dying world, only humans and orcs remain. And of course, they're mortal enemies, been fighting for years. But a new foe appears, and the idea is, can it bring them together? Can they form an alliance to fight this new foe? And that's it. It's just fantasy, kind of Lord of the Rings, D&D fun. It's just really well written with good characters.
Yeah, I love fantasy stuff, and one of our favorite books that we're doing is Conan.
Oh God, yeah! How good is that?
That's a darker fantasy. This is more like high fantasy type.
That's right.
Which you don't have a ton of. There's not a lot out there, so I do like that. And I'll tell you, it's weird when that first issue came out. I don't know why. I thought, oh, here we go, orcs and shit. And I was, this is pretty good. And it looks great.
Not orcs again. It's like,
oh, man, orcs and humans. I was like, but that used to be my big thing, back in the day with Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. So it's weird. The indie stuff, because there's so much of it, it's so easy to lose track. That's, again, why I like doing this sort of show.
I think, Jim, there was a problem with the scheduling. I think maybe they missed a month or two. Yeah, because it's like it came out. The first issue came out in July, and it's only issue 6 now in February. So you know what I mean. It's easy to miss that, isn't it? You kind of lose
and that's
track.
the thing too. And if you delay people, that's such a jumping off point, especially with indie stuff.
It's a shame.
By the way, Hunger in the Dusk is from IDW, but we'll move on to might be my favorite book of the week. But it's If You Find This, I'm Already Dead, #1. It's by Matt Kint with art by Dan McDade. It's from Dark Horse Comics. It's pricey. It's almost like the Black Label format, but it's an expensive book. It's such a quick read. You go through it, and you're just plowing through it, and you're like, oh my God, because this is an $8 book. That's kind of insane.
It's like a magazine size, isn't it? That's what I heard. Yeah.
I love Matt Kint, so I read it right away. I loved it. And it's one of those, we won't spoil too much of this, but it ends up having a setup in this where there is a military team and they're going off to go to this dimensional pocket, this pocket universe called Terminus. And you have a team that really, to me, I don't know about you, but it's something me and you talk about a lot. It felt like almost like Predator, where you have this team of here's the explosive guy, here's the guy who's the scout, here's this gun guy. And then you have a lady who's there embedded with them that's going to report back. But the lady ends up being pretty tough and has gone through this a lot. They end up almost like laughing at her at first. When they get to this other place, this Terminus, all hell breaks loose. And it is so crazy what happens and how crazy it ends up getting. But I think that Metkin does a really good job of, while you're on the run, and I'm telling you, there's some like jaw-dropping moments with some of these characters, you end up kind of learning about this Terminus. It's a weird alien dimension, but they also have these humanoids that are like slaves. They're making them do work. But in the end, it's just this press lady just on the run. I think her name is Robin. She ends up should be running because she's running for her life, and things just get crazy, insane, over the top. I really liked it. How about you?
Me too. Well, you got me to read this, Jim, because I hadn't even heard about it. So it's really good, like pulpy sci-fi action, basically, isn't it? As you say, and the art. I've got to shout out the art. Is it Damn It Dade? Really good art.
It's really good, but it's $8. That's such a high price point, and I think that people might be turned off because it is such a quick read. But it's my favorite book of the week. I think that's the weird play. If this was $3.99, $4.99. I would definitely tell everybody, don't even bother even thinking about it. Go and get it. But yeah, that's the thing. It's $8, so that's a tough sell.
If you can get a physical copy, Jim, if you're into that, if you can get the actual physical copy, give it a shot because it's probably worth it. And I've heard it's awesome. But digital, maybe not.
I am really looking forward to the next issue, and I can't tell you, besides the Transformers, G.I. Joe, the Energon stuff, I haven't had a ton of books where I couldn't wait till the next issue. But we have one last book. But what is it, Gray?
It is Usagi Yojimbo, Ice and Snow, issue 5. And it wraps up the story arc, Jim. It acts as a kind of epilogue, this issue. It's been so good. We've had Usagi and his cousin, Yukichi. They've been out in the snow. They've had the snow woman, Yuki Onna, she's called, like from Japanese mythology after them. And also Jay. Do you remember Jay? He's like the blade of the gods, some kind of crazy evil monk. So it's so good. And I got to shout out, 40 years on the cover, it says, of Usagi Yojimbo. Stan Sakai. What a legend.
Stan Sakai the art's great.
Yeah.
But you also had an honorable mention in an indie book as well, right?
Yeah, this kind of came out of nowhere. It was a recommendation from a friend. It's called Jennifer Blood, Battle Diary, and it's issue 3. This is from Dynamite, Jim, so you know what that kind of means. But it's actually really good, solid, kind of action spy story written by Fred Van Lent. I don't know if you know him, Fred Van Lent, but he's never been a big major writer, but he's done quite a lot of smaller series. But yeah, I've liked what I've read from him, and as I say, it's just great action, and it's not boobs and ass. There's nothing to do with that. Nothing wrong with that, though.
No, that would be if it was a Zenoscope. If it was a Zenoscope, that's all it would be.
Well, Dynamite as well. They've got a reputation, haven't they? With the covers especially.
Do. And when I end up getting, especially the preview stuff, and I'm looking at it's like every time they have like a Vampirella or one of those deals, and I'm like, oh God, when they have the variant covers, but they're actually the cosplayers, I'm like,
I know. It's like,
if I was actually just looking at it, my wife walked through the room, I'd be in big trouble.
Probably me too.
But it's comic stuff. I'm like, it's nothing. She's like, why are your pants off? I'm like, well, things happen. I don't know. They fell off somehow, honey. So yeah, that is it.
Awesome.
But again, everybody, let us know what you thought were your books of the week. Tell us in the comments. And again, there's no right or wrong answer, obviously, though people will still try to fight at times, but there's no reason to fight. If you like something or didn't like what we said or whatnot, just let us know. And we will discuss it civilly.
We're always on the lookout for recommendations, aren't we, Jim? Things we might have missed, always.
You end up sprucing it up. You make it classy. So thanks for joining me once again. Again, everybody, let us know what your books of the week are. And with that, we will bid you adieu, and we will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.